From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Kristen Amiot. It's Monday, September 22, 2025. Australia's recognition of Palestine has been formalised as part of a coordinated foreign policy effort with Canada and the UK. The move has been lashed by Donald Trump's Republican allies, who say Prime Ministers Anthony Albanese, Mark Carney and Keir Starmer are rewarding terrorism. Young people are deserting the coalition and men are turning away from opposition leader Susan Lee in record numbers. That's according to new data from Newspoll. You can read our experts' analysis of those new numbers right now at theaustralian.com.au. 2 New South Wales residents couldn't connect to emergency services during a deadly network outage on Thursday. It's the latest from a growing catastrophe at Optus, which left people in 2 states dead after their calls to 000 failed. Today, technology editor Jared Lynch joins us to break down this entirely preventable tragedy.
I would like to reiterate how sorry I am about the very sad loss of the lives of 4 people who could not reach emergency services in their time of need.
This is Optus Chief Executive Stephen Roux.
And the news has understandably created concern for the wider community, who rightly want to know that when they need this service, it will be available to them.
On Sunday afternoon, Roux fronted the media to explain how as many as 4 people may have died as a result of a bungled network upgrade that meant they were unable to connect to emergency services.
What I can assure you is that actions are and will be taken to ensure that this does not happen in future.
It's just tragic. Clearly there is systemic failures within Optus for such a devastating and fatal outage to have happened.
Jared Lynch is The Australian's technology editor.
Now, Stephen Roux, he was appointed last November as Chief Executive after previously helming government-owned NBN Co. Now, part of his job is to right the ship. He has to go through what went wrong. Has he got the right executives in the right positions to ensure such an outage does not happen again? And if he can't clear the deadwood and right the nation's second biggest telco, then he's really got to ask himself, is he really the right person for the job? Because you can't gamble with 000. This is clearly life and death.
When the husband of a 68-year-old South Australian woman dialed 000 on Thursday, he would have been met not by the reassuring voice of an emergency dispatcher, but rather something like this.
We advise that the number you have called is currently switched off or unavailable. Please call again later.
The woman was experiencing chest pains and needed urgent medical help, but it never came, and she died alone in their home in the coastal suburb of Queenstown. Across the border in Western Australia, police conducting welfare checks confirmed 2 people may have died as a result of the outage, a 49-year-old Kensington man and a 74-year-old Perth man. Both deaths will be investigated by the state coroner. On Sunday, it was revealed calls by 2 New South Wales residents located close to the South Australian border also failed to connect. It was thought an 8-week-old baby boy had died in South Australia because his grandmother was unable to connect to emergency services after he suddenly stopped breathing. But South Australian police said on Sunday, while the Gawler West family was impacted by the outage, it was unlikely the little boy's death was connected to the delay in dispatching an ambulance. So how did this happen?
At about 12:30am on Thursday, it began what is known as a firewall upgrade. This is a routine upgrade, and why do they do it? It's to ensure that there's security in their network and to prevent cyber hackers. As you know, back in 2022, they were felled by a cyber attack, so it's something they take very seriously. The problem with these sort of upgrades is they're notoriously tricky. Things often always go wrong. But when they do go wrong, alarm bells are normally raised and then they can quickly revert to what was happening previously. What made this upgrade tricky was there was a failure, as Stephen Roos said, in Optus's processes, which didn't raise those alarm bells. And it was made complicated by the fact that normal calls could continue to be made. So on their network, they were seeing basically nothing was going wrong. People would still make calls on their phone if they were calling their Uncle Fred, Auntie Barbara or friend Faye down the road, whoever it may be. Those calls were still able to be made. The calls that were not able to be made and which were affected during the upgrade were 000, and that had fatal consequences. At about 9 o'clock in the morning, we know that some customers started calling to say, we can't call 000, what's going on? We now know that 5 people called that overseas contact centre saying, we cannot call 000, we need help. But those calls were completely ignored. And it wasn't until 13 hours later, at about 1:30, that Telstra had that Houston, we have a problem moment. As Stephen Roos said, it wasn't until then that we recognised the severity of the issue. And by then it was too late. People had died because they could not contact emergency services when they needed help.
It's protocol in incidents like this for telcos to alert the authorities when they haven't been able to conduct their own welfare checks of people who dialed 000 during an outage. But Western Australian Deputy Premier Rita Saffioti said police weren't called until late on Thursday evening, around 9 p.m, to check on 26 people.
That still doesn't excuse the fact that people weren't able to contact emergency services in the first place, particularly when there is a process known as camp on. Because things do go wrong in telco land. It very rarely runs smoothly. So when there's an outage in one network and someone tries to call 000, they divert it to another carrier so they can get help when they need. That didn't happen in this case. It was a massive failure. So it's no surprise that police have now taken over those welfare checks. And that underscores the severity of this issue. I mean, you think this couldn't get even more serious. Who's to say that there were others who sadly had to pay fatal consequences? So those welfare checks are ongoing. The police have taken over. And hopefully the tragedy isn't made even more worse.
On Sunday, Stephen Roos said a new compulsory escalation process would be implemented at Optus.
As we had not detected the 000 failures in our network at the time of these calls, there were no red flags for the contact centre to alert them to any live issues. This is not clearly good enough. And we are implementing a new compulsory escalation process following any customer reports of 000 failures through our customer call centre.
So, Jared, Stephen Roos said on Sunday that Optus will conduct its own investigation and cooperate with government agencies and regulatory bodies on these investigations. What do you expect those various investigations will look like?
Well, I don't have a lot of faith in these investigations. The government commissioned Richard Bean, who's the former deputy chair of ACMA, during the last outage, and there were 18 recommendations that were made to prevent another 000 outage from occurring. Now, during the press conference, Stephen Roos said that there will be another review. Well, how many more reviews do we need? I mean, Richard Bean delivered a very comprehensive review about what went wrong and made very detailed recommendations, including appointing a 000 custodian, employing greater network resilience, greater monitoring to ensure it doesn't happen again. It was very detailed. Do we really need another review to find out what's went wrong? I mean, to me, that sounds like it's kicking the can down the road. Accountability must happen now. 4 people died. What more needs to be said?
Coming up, it's a case of history repeating for Optus. We've been here before, in late 2023.
Optus is tonight in damage control after a day-long network outage caused mass disruption right across the country.
During that outage, the biggest in the telco's history, mobile internet and landline services went down, public transport networks froze, hospitals were in disarray, and 000 calls were disrupted. Last year, Optus was fined $12 million for the catastrophic incident, and former Chief Executive Kelly Bayer-Rosmarin vowed it would never happen again.
We operate a very reliable, very good service for our customers, and we pride ourselves on going the extra mile for our customers. So this is a very unusual occurrence. We're deeply sorry that it occurred, and we will do everything we can to make sure it doesn't happen again.
An investigation by the Australian Communications and Media Authority found the 2023 outage was preventable and made 18 recommendations for how another incident like it could be avoided. According to Emergency Management Minister Kirsty McBain, 12 of those recommendations have been implemented to date. The Australian's reporter Joanna Panagopoulos grilled Stephen Roux about the recommendations on Sunday.
Can you just talk us through which of those are now in place at Optus and what they are exactly, and if there's some weren't implemented, what those ones are?
Yeah, well, I've been assured that the company put in place processes around any recommendations that were made, but I will be ensuring that the independent review looks at the effectiveness of the implementation of those.
But if they were put in place, how can we now trust that it's going to make any difference? Another set of recommendations, another investigation. Because
we will do an independent review. We will make public the facts, and I can assure you we will be implementing everything.
Here's Jared Lynch.
The question that really needs to be asked is that $12 million penalty, is that sufficient, or is it merely a rounding error for companies like this? And what is needed to bring accountability to prevent this from happening again? Because that is what a fine is for. It's an incentive to ensure that you don't do a repeat offence. But that has happened. Like the reviews, what more needs to be done? What greater penalty is needed to hold our essential infrastructure, which is what telcos are, to account, to ensure that when Australians need help in a life and death situation, that they can get it.
Do you have any faith anything will change at Optus, given this is the second similar major incident in 2 years, and not forgetting the telco was the target, as you said earlier, of a major data hack in 2022? Do you think anything's likely to change after this?
The place is clearly a mess. In 2022, we had a cyber attack which leaked the sensitive details and personal information of about 10 million Australians. 12 months later, we had that national meltdown where people could not contact 000. Then we had the ACCC sue them for $100 million. That resulted in a $100 million penalty for selling mobile plans to people they knew they could not afford them. Clearly, there are systemic failures. Stephen Roux has got to be very forensic to find out if he's got the right team in place, as I said earlier, because if he doesn't, then he's clearly not the man for that job. And it is only by doing that action, clearing the deadwood, getting on top of the systemic failures, and proving to the Australian people that action has been taken, tangible action, not feel-good recommendations in a review or commissioning another independent report. The time for that is well past. The Australian public needs to see demonstrable action that Optus has changed its ways to have faith in our second biggest telco.
Jared Lynch is the Australian's technology editor. This story is developing quickly. For all the latest, join our subscribers at theaustralian.com.au.